The murder of P38. Now, everybody's probably thinking, oh, who's P38? Well, let me tell you, P38 was, it was a cat that I was in prison with that we called him P38 because he had like jagged teeth. And back in the military days, when you would be given your rations and stuff like that, they would give you a can opener. It was a really sharp little thing called a P38, and you can open your cans with it. So we called him P38, but his name was Joseph Sullivan. He was a good kid. I think he was 26 or 27 years old, wasn't doing a lot of time, was getting ready to hit the streets, was getting ready to, move on with his life. But let me tell you about a prison that's in Blythe, California called Chuckawalla. Now, I had already discharged a number and started a new term. So this is like around 2006. Now, Chuckawalla is a different type of prison. It is a level 2, but they send mostly, a lot more gang members and affiliates there, and it's in Southern California. But in the summertime, it gets anywhere from 120 to 130 something degrees in that prison because it's in the middle of the desert. And all these buildings that are there are made out of concrete. So when that sun hits it, I don't care what kind of ventilation system you have in there, it's not going to help anything. It's going to be hot as fuck. So let's jump to the story of P38. I get picked up. I'm in ADSEG for some shit that happened on the yard. P38's my neighbor in ADSEG. Again, he was a good kid, but I'm going to tell you how not only did the prison kill him, but the prison medical system killed him. And the medical system in prison is killing people, especially in California, I mean, by the dozens and dozens and dozens every fucking year. So P38 was in there. When you get into the hole, they give you a psych evaluation. A lot of us don't go to it, but he decided to go to it. He was my neighbor, and they told him that he needed to be on medication. Well, I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, are you a J-Cat? I mean, are you all fucked? He's like, nah, that's just what they told me. They said it would be better for me and help me adapt to being in the hole because I've never been in the hole in a situation like this before. So I was like, whatever, dude. I wouldn't take that shit if I were you. So they start coming to his door. They're bringing him his medication. Now, it's so fucking hot in this prison that you could literally take your lunch meat and put it on the wall and cook it, okay? In the hole, there's no ventilation. Even though we got holes in the doors, there's no ventilation in there. It runs about 100 to 110 degrees on the inside. But yet COs were manipulating the temperatures in that hole, and they were saying that it was 80 degrees, which it was never 80 degrees. It's literally impossible to do that. So P38, he was a cool cat, man. We used to work out. We would bust down, do all that shit. And in the back of my cell, I had like a little hole between the walls where I was able to rap with him and shit. He had a good family who I met later on when I helped his family win their case against wrongful death. They didn't get that much, which is crazy because they should have got way more. But anyway, so he was a good kid. And then all of a sudden he started acting different. And he tells me one day, he's like, yo, Casper, he's like, at night, I look out my cell and I see these fucking crazy shadow figures jumping in and out of the door. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, homie? I'm like, are you taking those fucking weird meds? And the meds they put him on was an antipsychotic called Zyprexa. And when you take these type of meds, you can't be in a heated environment like that because it affects the medication and the way it works. Plus, it's a fucking crazy medication that a 26-year-old kid with no pre-existing problems should have or should be taking. So I told him, I was like, you taking that fucking medication? He's like, yeah. I was like, dude, stop taking that shit. Well, that didn't really register with P38 because he continued to take the medication. And one day he was working out. You heard him sounding off because they sound off when they do their routines. The Woods do theirs. The homies do theirs. He's sounding off. Everything's fine. He comes out. I'm like, hey, what's up, homie? How you doing today? He's like, oh, I'm good. And then, I don't know, about 9 o'clock at night, it was different because I would usually rap with him, but I heard him tearing something in his cell. And I was like, dude, did you get some fucking mail? Because he had a girlfriend on the streets that he was having issues with. And I was like, what, bro? Did you get some mail? And fucking you're all pissed off. What are you tearing? I was like, you good? And he answers me back like he normally would, but in a different tone. Really quiet, really shut off. He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just chilling. So I'm like, whatever, P38, fuck you, man. You don't want to rap with me, fuck you. You know, that's exactly what I said. And me and my celly, Boxer, were in there, and we were just like, damn, dude, what's fuck up P38? So at about 10:30, when the cops come around and do their cell checks, that we were looking for, and see if everybody's good. He walks around, he walks past our cell. I'm up, hanging out the door like I usually do. And in that situation, we're always one up, one down. So if my celly's sleeping, I'm awake. If I'm awake, my celly's, if I'm sleeping, my celly's awake. It's one up, one down. Mandatory, all times, except for after a certain amount of hours. So I'm just chilling at the door. I see the cop go by. And then he walks over to the corner cell, which is P38's cell. Now, P38's cell was a corner cell. So not only was he getting heat from this side, but he was getting it from the back too that was coming. It was about 100 and something degrees in there. And the cop walks in, and he kicks his door and nothing. And then he kicks his door again. Then the cop pushes his buzzer and runs off. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I get up on my door and I'm like, P38, fucking answer me. He's not answering, right? Next thing you know, the cops run in there. There's like 10 of them that run in there. They rack the door, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? He hung himself. So that tearing that I heard was the tearing of the sheets that he used to hang himself. And what he did was, you can't put shit on the roof in order to do that. You got to tie it to your bed. And what he did was he put it around his neck and just leaned forward. So, he cut off his circulation. He was dead. I couldn't fucking believe it. And at that point, they left him in the cell until Riverside County Coroner got there, which was like 9 hours fucking later, right? So he was in the cell, dead, baking in the heat until 9 hours later. And then the Riverside County Sheriff, the coroner, shows up, and they grab him and they pull him out of the cell. They don't cover him or anything. His tongue was hanging out. His arms and all his down here was black from the blood that coagulated there. And they pulled him out. Then they wrapped him up. They took him away. The CDC denied responsibility for this. Now, not only did they take a 26-year-old kid and put him on medication he didn't need to be on, but they were lying about the heat conditions in that prison. And if anybody's ever done any time in Chuckawalla State Prison, you know how fucking hot it gets there. Ironwood as well. It's the same situation, and they're not able to keep it cool. So when you're locked in a hole in a cell, you're burning up. You shouldn't be on that medication. Not to mention the fact that they experiment with their drugs on inmates. This is a known fact. They were given motherfuckers Seroquel, Zyprexa, SSRIs, all these things to experiment on inmates. That's what they were doing. They were just hopping them up. The psychiatrist, like 70 years old, they don't listen to you. There's no talking to these fucking people. You go in there and talk to them for 5 minutes, and they'll prescribe you with a deadly medication. And that's what happened with P38. And the California Department of Corrections, they denied it all the way till the end. Even in the lawsuit, they denied taking responsibility. But this shit happens all the time. There was another cat that was on the same yard. He had been, I don't know what his deal was, but he was like, he threw up a little bit of blood. He was having bad stomach pains. He had a history of cirrhosis of the liver and some other things. And he went to so they have a walk-up line for medical at night. He goes to the line. He's like, hey, I'm having these issues. I threw up blood. I don't feel good. And they gave him some ibuprofen and told him to go back to his cell. Okay. Now, if you're throwing up blood, you already know there's probably something going on down there. You're not supposed to be taking ibuprofen because it affects the stomach lining and can make things a whole lot worse. So he took the ibuprofen. Next thing you know, he's sitting in the same booth, like in the dorm where the beds are, next to me, and this motherfucker threw up probably 2 gallons of blood right there and ended up dying because they don't care about inmates in there. You're just you're nothing. You're just like an animal in the cage, and they're making money off you, not only from pushing these drugs that the pharmaceutical companies are pushing out, but also by neglect. The people they hire in there to take care of these inmates are amateurs. They don't know what they're doing. They don't care. They blow everything off, and people are dying and dying. So yes, P38 was murdered. It was the CDC's responsibility, and they didn't want to take it for him. But you can read up on what happened to P38. It's all over. You could Google it or whatever. But to witness that, you got to just, I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible that human beings are treated like that. And I understand that a lot of people belong in prison and they deserve to be behind bars because they do some heinous shit. But this kid was in there for grand theft auto. He stole a car. Did he deserve to die? There's a lot of people in prison that are in there for stupid shit, and they simply made a mistake when they were trying to survive. Not everybody in the California prison is a violent criminal or hardcore gang member. And these are facts. So people need to stop judging it on that, because a lot of people make mistakes and they don't deserve to die and be neglected when it comes to the medication they need, the treatment they need, and they don't need to be experimented on by the pharmaceutical companies, because you know that these prisons in California have contracts with them in order to test their medication. All you are is a lab rat to them. I'm Casper. This is the American You Show. Till next time, make sure you like and subscribe. I got a bunch of stories to tell you about my prison terms and how I was able to pick myself up and get out of that situation that I am no longer in. I'm happy. I have a family, a wife, and I'm doing great. I need to stop yelling so much because my voice goes the fuck out. But I'm Casper. Again, this is the American You Show. Like and subscribe. Peace.